Copyright disclaimer. Under Title 17 U.S.C. Section 107, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing, non-profit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. Okay, this is from Narchive News Group Archive. It's from the Germans, so I personally love Germans. I got a little German in me as well. My grandfather on my dad's side was straight German. Convicted Scientology criminals. Stop Scientology. Vor 15 Jahren. That's the date. Convicted Scientology criminals. Scientology seems to have an obsession with crimes. And I got a little tired of the same old, oh my God, anonymous terrorist bullshit. I thought I'd feed their obsession a little, and because it's a slow day at work. Here's a list of convicted Scientologists, not convictions against the Church of Scientology itself. There's plenty of those too. Each and every one has substantive media articles or court documents to validate the conviction. There were many others who were arrested and charged or are currently pending, but if I couldn't find proof of the conviction or names had been omitted, as is the case in some European and Australian courts, I didn't include it. If you have any more you know of where a Scientologist was convicted, please post and I'll add to the list. I think this was posted in 2009. L. Ron Hubbard, arrested August 1948 for petty theft, unindicted co-conspirator in obstructing justice, LAPD, did you hear that? Burglary of government offices, LAPD, did you hear that? And theft of documents and government property of Operation Snow White. Fined for leaving an infant in a car during a lecture. Wow, isn't that wonderful? Wow. 1978. Convicted of fraud in France and sentenced to 4 years in prison. Never faced his charges. You guys should ask yourself, why is that? Expelled from Morocco for trying to overthrow the government, and expelled from Rhodesia. Artur Solomonian, arrested for terrorism, smuggling weapons, and admitted to connections with Al-Qaeda by the FBI in 2005. He was sentenced in March 2009. Wait a minute. Gabriel Williams, convicted of sexual battery, and SOD of a child, in excess of 100 times in Mountain View, California, in 2005. I shared the video of the husband of the perpetrator. Donald Anthony Strawn, a.k.a. Tony Strawn, convicted in Florida in 1995 to 30 years in prison for sexually molesting 2 girls, ages 11 and 13. Well, wouldn't you know, another pedo. I was not aware of this one. LAPD likes to guard the pedos. James Barber, now I knew about him. He's a so-called celebrity. He's working again, of course. Pled guilty to endangering the welfare of a minor. That's the only charge he got? In 2008, after charges were brought against him in the 2001 sexual molestation of a 15-year-old girl. They just love their little girls, don't they? William Van Rompuy, Dutch Scientologist, convicted of the 2003 murder of 23-year-old Catherine Bore. Jean-Jacques Mazière, convicted of manslaughter and fraud in the death of Scientologist Patrick Vic in France in 1998. Gary Don Beals, a diagnosed schizophrenic, was convinced by the Church of Scientology to forgo his medication. Oh, here's another one. We should keep a record of all these people that had the psychosis or schizophrenia and then wound up to go on to either, well, they all committed acts of violence. Convinced by the Church of Scientology to forgo his medication, he blanked his father and stabbed his mother. He was convicted of manslaughter. Beals was found dead in 2007. Link provides the Salt Lake City Tribune article about his arrest. Yeah, and I'm sure nothing happened to Scientology, did it? Reed Slatkin pled guilty to fraud in a massive Ponzi scheme in 2003 and was sentenced to 14 years in prison. My question is, why aren't the other executives? Why didn't they go to prison? That Reed Slatkin didn't do it all on his own. Gene Shumway, convicted in 1991 in Seattle of first-degree murder in the poisoning and smothering of her mother. Also, I don't remember exact details, and I'm not condoning that, but I believe Jean Shumway wanted to get out. She wanted to leave to get out of Scientology, and she was very abused. And I think she probably thought there's no other way to get out, to stop the abuse. Alexis Shumway. Oh, wait a minute, guys. Something's missing here. You got Jean Shumway, smothered her mother, and Alexis Shumway. They must have been sisters. They like to convict women, though, don't they? Convicted in 1991 in Seattle of first-degree murder in the poisoning and smothering of her grandmother. Wow. So, as I said, I don't condone this. How much do you bet these girls wanted to get away and they were being extremely abused and the mother and grandmother would not let them leave? So it was like retributive, like, you guys know what I mean. Retaliation for the abuse. Ben Castle, convicted on June 4th, 2009, on count A. Oh, here we have another sex offender. Shocking, right? I wish we should all keep like a list of it. I need to do this. I can't do everything. I'd like to keep a list of running tabulation of all the sex offenders and the murderers and the bluicides. Ben Castle, convicted on June 4th, 2009 on count A, a tier sex offense requiring sex registry in Ohio. After pleading nolo contendere, neither admission or denial, to R-ing a child. Oh, listen, you guys. Isn't this wonderful? To R-ing a child of 13 to 14 years inside of the Cincinnati Church of Scientology. Ben Castle, another pedo. And the LAPD is fine with guarding them, aren't they? Rick Pendery, co-owner of the Second Chance program, was convicted of fraud in San Diego in 1994. Note, lost a civil suit of fraud, sentenced by a judge. You guys know he was a fall guy, right? Nana Anderson pled guilty in December 1995 in Canada to stealing documents from the Ontario Medical Association at the behest of the Church of Scientology between November 1976 and March 1983. I don't suppose she would be related to Laura, would she? Or Lara, I mean? She's from Ontario, Canada. Janice Wheeler, convicted in Toronto, Canada, in 1992 of breach of public trust in the Church of Scientology, infiltration of Canadian government offices, and theft of confidential documents. I wonder what the Toronto PD think about that. Donald Whitmore, convicted in Toronto, Canada, in 1992 of breach of public trust in the Church of Scientology, infiltration of Canadian government offices, and theft of confidential documents. We all know they're really concerned with that, but they're not as concerned with the little children getting AR'd. They don't have a big problem with that. Detlef Folloy, how do I say that? Detlef Folloy, convicted in Germany of tax evasion and subsidies fraud in 1993. Karl Erich Hielig, convicted in Germany of tax evasion and subsidies fraud in 1993. Markel de Bolis, convicted in 2006 in Columbus, Ohio, of healthcare fraud, jailed in 2006 on drug charges. Another schizophrenia story, you guys. Linda Walicki, a 25-year-old woman suffering from schizophrenia and a member of a Scientologist family, in April 2008 in Sydney, Australia. She allegedly suffered a psychotic break after being taken off her medication by Scientologists. Why don't they get persecuted? She stabbed her father, Michael, and her 15-year-old sister, Catherine, to death. Seriously injuring her mother, she was committed to the Bunya Unit, Cumberland Hospital, after pleading not guilty due to mental disease or defect. She and her family were named in the print version of the Sydney Morning Herald, not the online version. Lots of schizophrenia stories. Turns out they needed their medication. Ronald W. Bernstein, convicted in 1991 in Clearwater. Oh, wait, Clearwater Police, did you hear that? Get a load of that, Clearwater Police. Of federal money laundering charges. Well, the Clearwater PD don't mind taking money that was laundered for their overtime pay. They're cool with that. Grant Boshoff, convicted in 1991 in Clearwater of federal money laundering charges. Clearwater PD, did you hear that? Lawrence Spencer, convicted in 1991 in Clearwater of federal money laundering charges. And Clearwater PD they have no idea of any of this. I'd hate to be someone in Scientology trying to escape in Clearwater, Florida, call 911 and knowing the police aren't going to come help you. Can you imagine how awful that would be? Being locked up in those hotel rooms? Ludmila Vasileva, Denmark Scientologist, who was a nanny for another Scientologist family, killed and mutilated their twin children, Lauren and Hervé. Need to find a Danish newspaper article. I remember hearing about that. That's awful. How many times have we heard, I would love to know how old this person was. How many times have we heard about Scientology executives using the children as their nannies and their housekeepers, sometimes essaying them as well? I mean, that's awful. I would like to know more what happened in that situation. Harry Larhuis, Dutch former executive director of the French branch of the organization. I don't trust him. Was condemned to 3 years and a fine of 15,000 francs. It's not very much money. Convicted of fraud in France with LRH in 1978, fled the country. Yet they still have Scientology in France, don't they? That's crazy. Jacqueline Valentin, French former head of the church in France, was sentenced to 2 years in prison and a fine of 10,000 francs. I don't think that's very much money. Convicted of fraud in France with LRH in 1978, fled the country. Wonder if that's what David Miscavige is going to do. So essentially what they're saying is they got away with it. Georges Andrew, convicted of fraud in France with LRH in 1978 and faced his charges. Well, that's good. Given a suspended 1-year prison sentence and a fine of 3,000 francs. Erwin Richard Anau, convicted of fraud in Florida in 1998 as part of the Trade Net Laundry Ball scam. Oh, another scam. I'm sure the LAPD doesn't know nothing about it. Clearwater PD knows nothing about it. Bill L.W. Cooper, convicted of fraud in Florida in 1998 as part of the Trade Net Laundry Ball scam. Wonder how many scams they have going right now. And the police are super fine with it. As long as the police get their overtime pay, they're fine. They don't care where the money comes from. I mean, it can come from child labor. It can come from extortion. It can come from money laundering. I mean, like that cop said when William Good filmed him that day. He's like, it's good overtime. Something like that. He said something like that. Good money. I guess wherever it comes from doesn't matter, does it? Robert Float, convicted of fraud, fined 3 separate times. His company, Red Giant, is now outlawed in Illinois. Elizabeth Eagleton Weingard, convicted of blackmail of Senator Thomas Eagleton, Democrat in Missouri in 1980. Don't you guys wonder how many charges there are that didn't get filed? It just makes you wonder, doesn't it? Herb Zerden, convicted of operating an unlawful foreclosure rescue scam in Texas from Clearwater, Florida in 2007. Forced to repay homeowners in Texas. Well, that's good. Wonder if he threw Clearwater police a little bit of money. David Goraway, arrested April 2nd, 2008, after buying drugs from an undercover, I think that's supposed to be cop, and charged with cocaine trafficking. Oh, there's something funny going on there. In charge with cocaine trafficking. Oh, wait, you guys. Remember LRH's son? I forget his name. One of the sons said that L. Ron Hubbard was all up in the cocaine trafficking. He was all up in it. From an undercover cop in charge with cocaine trafficking, money laundering, resisting arrest with violence, and driving with a suspended license. Settled on the fraud case. There's so much I want to say there, but I'm not. But what I will say is Fall Guy. Franz Riedel, Germany, 1994, convicted of libel. I believe this is the right story. Jeremy Perkins, committed to a mental hospital in 2004 in Buffalo, New York, after stabbing his mother 77 times. I know what 77 stands for. I'm not going to get into it here. But you guys, go watch Zachary K. Hubbard, man. I don't watch him anymore as much just because it got a little depressing. But think about this, you guys. Think about this. And like I said, I didn't do very well in algebra. I got a little of it. But how in the hell would a coroner know how somebody got stabbed 77 times or 32 times? They don't know. They use numerical codes. And I believe Jeremy Perkins perhaps had some type of schizophrenia. I don't remember. Some type of mental, like psychosis. Deborah Ann Dalton, convicted of fraud in 2002 in Sydney, Australia, for pretending she had a baby to collect child care money. Well, we all know why they were committing these frauds, because they, Scientologists were breathing down their back. They need more money. They need to be uptoned, or not uptoned, but upstat. They need this, they need that, they need money for the buildings, blah, blah, blah. You need the course, you need the auditing, all that. So, Giorgio Carta, convicted of extortion in 2004 in Sardinia, connected to the 1997 bluicide. Oh, here's another bluicide, you guys. Roberto De Plano. Somebody write that down. Roberto De Plano, another bluicide. I discovered 2 more in the last 2 days. Sentenced to 4.5 years in prison. Richard E. Britton Jr., convicted of fraud in Knoxville, Tennessee in 1999. Javier Delamare, head of the COS in France, convicted of fraud in 1999 and sentenced to 2 years in jail. I personally would like to know how long they served in those terms. However, a lot of them probably get a little bit of, what do you call it, a little bit of understanding, because they're all under mind control. So I suppose it depends on the person and how much they're in, Kent Stryker, convicted October 2005 in LA of federal fraud and charities fraud charges. Jacqueline Motz, convicted of 2 counts of breach of trust contrary in 1992 in Canada. Olga Yukova, convicted of money laundering and setting up an illegal business in Russia in 2001. Suzanne Montegiro was sentenced in Switzerland with a suspended 15 days arrest, 2,000 Swiss franc torts, and all the legal costs to pay in 2003 for defamation of a critic. Jurg Stetler and Gabriella Arm. See, they'll throw a sacrificial lamb out real quick, won't they? And all the rest of this is in French, I think. Sacres de la Scientology, and had a 3-day arrest commuted to a fine of 1,000 Swiss francs in 2002 for insubordination to a decision of authority. That's believable. David Lee Entenmann pled guilty to assault with a deadly weapon on a police officer. Oh, I wonder how that... I guess that didn't work out for him, you guys. like Good says, how'd it work out for you? Transporting a destructive device and unlawful possession of materials with intent to make explosives in connection to a van, bombing, in LA in 1996. How about that, you guys? Wow. And LAPD just stand out there like they don't know anything. Samuel D. Rosen, Scientologist lawyer. That's funny. Oh, you know I had to laugh on that. Scientologist lawyer slapped with a temporary order of protection after... oh, wait a minute. Okay, this is not what I thought it was. After throwing his now ex-wife down a flight of stairs. Wait a minute. Do I remember hearing someone getting thrown down a flight of stairs? I'm not going to... It probably was someone else. He tried to fight the injunction in 2002 and lost. Sucker. The following were arrested and charged in connection with Operation Snow White. Mary Sue Hubbard, convicted in federal court of obstructing justice. LAPD, you hear that? Burglary of government offices and theft of documents and government property. Sent to prison for 5 years. Cindy Raymond, convicted in federal court of obstructing justice, burglary of government offices, and theft of documents and government property, sent to prison for 5 years. Meanwhile, the drug addict LRH, L. Ron Hubbard, nothing happened to him. I need to go back and find that picture of him in his Freemason outfit. I told myself when I found it, keep it, and then, I didn't. You didn't miss anything, trust me. Gerald Bennett Wolfe, that's one of his sons. He changed his name. Convicted, I think. Wait, no. One of the grandsons changed his last name to Wolfe. Gerald Bennett Wolfe, convicted in federal court of obstructing justice, burglary of government offices, and theft of documents and government property. Sent to prison for 5 years. I wonder where Heber Jensch was when all this was going on. Henning Hilt, convicted in federal court of obstructing justice, burglary of government offices, and theft of documents and government property. Sent to prison for 5 years. I guess 5 is a lucky number, you guys. Duke Snyder, convicted in federal court of obstructing justice, burglary of government offices, and theft of documents and government property. Sent to prison for 5 years. Gregory Willardson, convicted in federal court of obstructing justice, burglary of government offices, and theft of documents and government property. Sent to prison for 5 years. Richard Weigand, convicted in federal court of obstructing justice, burglary of government offices, and theft of documents and government property. Sent to prison for 5 years. Okay, a lot of these got the same charges, so I'm just going to say their names so we don't have to keep saying the same thing over and over. So Mitchell Herman got the same, Sharon Thomas got the same, Jane Kembler got the same, Mo Budlong got the same. Don't you guys wonder why some people got put in prison and some didn't? Wouldn't you guys just freaking love to know that? I sure would. Arrested Scientologists currently awaiting trial. Jesse Remmers, a hitman who blanked 6 people before his arrest. See, for the people who say that Scientology does not KILL, they absolutely do. So Jesse Remmers, a hitman who blanked 6 people before his arrest in the Netherlands. Also allegedly the executive president. Wow, isn't that something? Wow, look at that. He was the executive president of Criminon Foundation, Netherlands, from December 2004 to October 2005, still awaiting trial. That would be interesting to go back and look. Peter Giuseppe Laserpe, arrested in connection with Jesse Remmers, a hitman who blanked 6 people. Wonder who those people were that they offed. Before his arrest in the Netherlands, still awaiting trial. So for all these morons, you guys know who I'm talking about, right? I am a prestigious executive. So for all these morons that keep talking about nobody ever KILLED, anybody in Scientology, they sure did, and they blanked a lot of dogs. Yes, they did. Hiram's a very interesting word, isn't it? Hiram Monserrate, state senator of New York, who was involved in the detoxification program for 9/11 workers. Isn't that great, you guys? Talk about vulnerable. He allegedly attacked and assaulted his girlfriend, slashing her face with a broken glass. They're into that stuff. They're into hurting their women. Was arraigned on March 27th, 2009, is awaiting trial. So that's it, you guys. I find this quite interesting. I'm going to look to see what else they got here. So, anyways, they did try to get rid of the Wyrie protest, but they didn't do it. So, like and subscribe if you choose. I'll leave the article in the description box. And have an amazing day or night wherever you are. Peace.